that done by Wednesday. I have to redo the chapter outline for chapter 3. I'm thinking maybe we'll have a test. Should we go to 3 chapters or just 2? I'm thinking we should probably have a test beginning of next week, like Monday. Okay, on chapter 1 and 2. If we get through part of 3, then we'll do part of 3. I don't think we're going to be able to get to all of this in that time, but we'll try. Okay, so I won't test you on anything I haven't discussed, and if I do, I'll tell you. Look for this. Okay. So we may, we're just going to be working, but figure we got to have a test next week. So, okay. So, any questions on Peninsulare? It's totally different than the English concept or the French and the Dutch. So that's why we spend a little bit of time on this, because it is so different. So you're highlighting the differences. So we got Peninsulare. Everybody clear on that? What's special about Peninsulare?
Born in Spain.
Born in Spain, and what does that get you?
Everything.
Government power.
Privileges, especially government power. They get economic power. And again, you had to go back, or you couldn't be part of the highest level of society, even if you were European descendant. Criollo, you remember that?
Born in the New World.
Born in the New World, European descent. Okay, limited in opportunities, but still much higher level than any of the other groups. Mestizo, we're clear on that? Zambo? What's interesting about Zambo? Is that going to be a large population?
No.
No, because there's not too many, especially in the mainland of Mexico or South America, minus Brazil. I don't know about the Portuguese. I don't know how they organize their colony in that way. But for sure the Spanish did. Not too many Africans will be brought to the Spanish colonies, except the Caribbean. And Caribbean is where you're going to see a ton of slavery. There's a big section in chapter 2 of the Caribbean and the sugar trade, etc. Huge amount of slaves. There'll be no natives there. They will all have died out probably within the first 50 years of Columbus or the European contact. And then, of course, Indian labor servitude, right? They will not be slaves. We talk about that. They won't be slaves because the Spanish crown, believe it or not, will prohibit slavery of the natives. Because of a guy named Bernal Diaz. Anybody heard of Bernal Diaz? The Black Legend. No, excuse me. It's not Bernal. Bartholomew de las Casas.
Oh.
Excuse me. Bernal Diaz was the guy with Cortez. Bartholomew de las Casas was a monk, I think a Dominican monk, who was in the New World working with natives and kind of speaks up for inhuman cruelty, or speaks out against it. It's called the Black Legend, about the cruelty that the Spanish inflicted on the natives. And he will basically be a lobbyist, be an advocate for Native American rights and not to be enslaved. And so the King of Spain officially declares the natives cannot be enslaved. And they cannot be known as chattel. This will be important. Did we talk about this?
Yes.
Chattel means ownership. Africans brought to the New World will be predominantly chattel slavery. It means hereditary, and perpetual. Means it's for life, and your kids' offspring are automatically owned. It means it can be bought and sold. The Indians in the Spanish context were not to be bought and sold. They were owed like a debt peonage. You've heard of that, peon? You've heard that term? We still hear that today, where they're used to owe debts of service. So they have X amount of months or weeks owed to whatever the local Spanish organization was or enterprises.
So indentured servitude? Kind of like
It's
that?
kind of like that, except it was ongoing. And pretty much the local tribe had to give service to the hierarchy for X amount of time. It was virtual slavery. It was almost, it wasn't chattel, but there's a fine line difference.
Could it be compared to serfdom?
Serfdom is more, possibly.
They actually got something out of that.
Serfdom is more of you were tied to the specific piece of land.
And this one you're tied
This
to.
was close to it.
Okay.
It was close to it. All right. Come on, let's go. This thing's Columbian Exchange. When you think of the Columbian Exchange, it's going to, you got to think in terms of New World, Old World, and there were goods that were sent to the New World, and there were new things to the New World, new things to the Old World. That's the Columbian Exchange. The exchange of things, products, animals, diseases. If you can make sure you know that, and then just have the test questions would be what are examples of items in brought to the New World or brought to the Old World from the New. Okay? The source for this, the best documentation of this in the modern scholarship is a guy named Alfred Crosby, Columbian Exchange, Biological and Cultural Consequences. There's probably that one with the guns, germs, and steel. Was that Richard Diamond?
Yeah.
You heard of that?
Yeah, Jared.
Jared Diamond. So that would be an addition to this. This guy was a little earlier. This is the next one. Haven't read that one. Don't know if that's wonderful or not. And this would be an example. This is a primary source. This is from around 1622, Boston Bay area. Who is talking and what are they saying? Anybody can read it for us? Any volunteers? Except the people who always volunteer. All right, Kyle, you can do it. And I want you to do it with an English accent.
Around Boston Bay, the Indians died on heaps as they lay on their houses, and the living that were able to shift for themselves would run away and let them die, and let their carcasses lie above the ground without burial. And the bones and skulls upon the several places of their habitations made such a spectacle after my coming into these parties, that as I travelled into the forest near Massachusetts, it seemed to me I found a new Golgotha.
Golgotha.
Oh, Golgotha.
Sorry, this is spelling of the visual's not perfect. Golgotha. Okay, any words you don't understand?
Golgotha.
Go ahead. Anybody else? Anybody know what that stands for? Are no Christians here? There are no Christians? Nope. Sorry, good guess. You're not a Christian. I'm sorry. No, I don't mean that on video at all.
I can cut that out if you want.
Yeah, let's do that. No, you don't know Christian. You don't know the Bible. This is a Bible rep. Anybody know? Look it up. Huh?
Is this supposed to be like hell or something?
No. Look it up. Who's got a fancy phone? Told you could have your phones out. You should just keep them right on your desk so we can look stuff up. How we doing over there? Emma? Really? How do you like it? You want a copy of it? You can have a copy of it.
Okay.
What's taking so long? Stephanie?
Is it like a safe haven?
No. Look it up. We're not guessing anymore.
A hill near Jerusalem where Jesus was crucified.
That's where Jesus was crucified. That's a totally biblical reference. You know, you heard of Jesus, right?
Jesus Christus.
So usually we get some really good, strong Christians know that term. Okay, I guess we don't have it. Why is this significant? Well, this is a document proving what? the Columbian Exchange, or at least referencing the context is the Columbian Exchange. Why did they die? Because of diseases that were not present before the Europeans got there. And then the reference to this tells you about who was making the documentation, who's making the observation. The author is what? A highly religious person, or knew the Bible very well to make those references, right?
Mm-hmm.
Plymouth, well, we're around Boston Bay area. Who's in 1622? Who's there? The Pilgrims, who were totally fundamentalist Christian people. Okay, so there's a couple of references you got to make. I would suggest you pay attention to. So this tells us about the Columbian Exchange, diseases, what happened to the Indians, and it tells us about the author who was significantly a Christian. Right? So you have the New World, Old World, and the exchange is these things. There's going to be a number of examples. The easy examples are diseases. Smallpox, measles, influenza, typhus. Oh, livestock, horses, cows, pigs, wheat, sugar, rice, coffee beans. What was new is what we're looking at. So gold and silver, was that new to the old world? No, they already had that. So you really don't pay. You could say, yeah, that's what, it was a giant commodity, a giant resource, but that wouldn't be the only, I mean, for the Columbian Exchange purposes, that probably wouldn't be what you would want to focus on. You want to look at corn. For some reason, the new program of the AP wants you to know about corn. What's the term corn? What's the other word for corn?
Maize.
Maize. They talk about it in your book, don't they?
Maize.
Did I make you look that up in the book? Maize?
No.
I'm sure I did. It's on the list. But maize is, I have a buddy who's teaching in Temecula, and he did a whole unit on maize. Okay, the significance of maize is what? What do you think they were eating down in the Aztec area or in Peru for the large population of the Pueblos? Corn can sustain massive amounts of population. It's easy to grow. It's very abundant.
Easy to store.
You can grind it, dry it. Heard of corn tortillas? It's maize. Anyway, so they make, for some reason you may see that on the AP exam, that maize was fundamental to natives. Who cares? Anyway, go ahead.
When we get a question on the test, and they asked for like an example, would we say like diseases, or would we have to say like smallpox?
Diseases and examples. It'll be, which of the following is accurate, true about the Columbian Exchange? A, B, C, D, E. And then you have to say what happened, which one is correct. You're identifying the right answer, basically. So corn is what? Potatoes is from South America. The Peruvians, the Incas were really hundreds of different varieties of potatoes. Oh, there's a Peruvian too. Who's the Peruvian? Is there a Peruvian in this class? Oh, I think it's in my psych. Beans, cocoa beans, etc. Tobacco is going to be a really big cash crop. Okay, any questions on the Columbian Exchange? Yes.
Not a question, but a comment. Another of the diseases that came from the New World was syphilis.
Yeah.
Not so sure. That's a controversy. It's not. I don't think it's. I don't think it's proven. I think that's a
spread.
It's a controversy. It's not. I don't think it's agreed that that's true.
Interesting.
Here's another example: pumpkin, squash, turkeys, peanuts, potatoes, tomatoes, corn, peppers, tobacco, pineapple, cacao, beans, vanilla. So that's a lot of products. Make sure you know potatoes. Tomatoes is fun. Peppers. Sweet potato. And then all of these things. Sugar cane. Now that's, people don't think, wow, this is going to be full of sugar cane here, but it was a European import. Bananas, coffee beans, people don't really recognize. I think that came from Africa. Onions, olives, citrus. So lots of honeybees, livestock, cattle, rice, wheat, barley, oats, and then diseases. Smallpox, influenza, typhus. Now again, if we go back to our do you guys know the explanation for why the diseases killed so many? Go back to this map. You got your clear explanation why the diseases killed so many here?
Because they hadn't developed immune.
They didn't have the immunities. Why?
Because its diseases didn't exist there.
Well, because of the isolation. And the term is hemispheric isolation. So for 50,000 years, there was no contact, or virtually no contact, between these continents here and the Western Hemisphere. Here, there'd always been constant contact through trade, and thousands of years, these diseases were spread. But here, we're totally isolated. That's why that land bridge is important. Get it? For understanding the big concept. Yes?
Were there any diseases that were like primarily located in the Americas that the Europeans?
Malaria, I think. Or it was very, very common, especially in this, as we see in these areas. But was it from only the Western Hemisphere? I'm not sure. Probably not. As Kyle said, there's this controversy that says syphilis came from the New World. And that's a controversy as far as I have my understanding. I think it's not proven. They think it may be, but that would be something we'd ask some scholars at the university. But when I was going to school, that's what we said. Okay, what did Jared Diamond say? Is that what he says? Anybody read his book? I think I have that book here somewhere. So I think that's just like Native Americans would not suggest that's true. All right, this is a document. This is called a map. Let's give someone a chance. Who wants to talk besides Kyle? No offense, Kyle. I really appreciate you. They need.
I totally understand.
Let's get some kids into it. Anybody can see from the back? What does this map show us? What do you learn from this map? You need to start analyzing things. It's one thing I'd like you to be able to do is you start to think about what's going on. How about Joe?
Where the Native Americans were in America.
Okay. Anybody else? Be more specific. How about Courtney?
What the Native Americans did and
Where they lived, what they did. So like Eastern Woodland. Damn it. Eastern Woodlands, Prairie, Great Plains. I keep doing this wrong. Right, like that kind of stuff. So these are like the geographic locations. These are all references to geographic. We know this term you should be very familiar with. That's kind of most of this. So that's one. John.
Well, I was going to ask a question. What's the last term on the key? Like on the bottom?
Fishing, I think. So it tells you kind of what the color coding means: hunting, gathering, farming. I would suggest that farming as a massive endeavor, it's probably it's a mixed bag here. It's more mixed than anything. There's some agriculture, but there's lots of hunting. And it definitely isn't the same populations that you're seeing in South America or Mexico. Anything else? Stephanie, what do you think? What do you see? What do you notice? What do you learn about Native Americans in America? There's a bunch of things you can learn, but there's one thing I'm thinking of.
Well, on the outskirts, they
Where?
farmed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Michaela, front row people can see better.
Oh, so how they sustain themselves.
Okay, Seth, Madeline.
How they figured out how to use their environment in their favor.
Okay, all these are right. It's not what I'm thinking. Blaine,
Is it like all the different methods of agriculture?
Jonathan
There's
again.
a diversity of tribes. Like
Bam. What do we notice about this? I mean, can you see the names?
no.
Barely.
Micmac, Penobscot, Abenaki, Wampanoag, Mohegan, Pequot, Narragansett, Susquehanna, Iroquois, Huron. Can't read that one. Erie, Shawnee, Tuscarora, Cherokee, Chickasaw, Creek, Yamasee, Tumaca, blah, 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 blah. There's tons of different tribes. Tons of different tribes is what I wanted to point out to you. There's a huge diversity in the culture of, or I don't know if it's ethnicity, but it's for sure culture. Different languages, different beliefs, etc. Got it? So there was a lot of different Indians. Is that going to affect the way that the Europeans interact with them? Yeah. How did they get along with each other? Very hostile to each other. They had specific locations that were there, tribal lands. Other groups came in. It was not a pretty sight. It was hostile, bloody. They did take slaves. They were brutal. There's a great film that I recommend. We'd like to do like a movie night or something. If anybody's interested, like in the PAC or somewhere. A couple of films we don't have time in class for. Would be really neat to be able to show those to you. Anyway, diversity. Let's look at the French. If you can see this area here, this is going to be claimed territory by the French. Okay? You see this area here, that's a stupid color, is going to be disputed border region. This area is disputed between the French and the English. You'll see that will be a problem later on. Some basic things. Cartier sailed up the St. Lawrence River. The St. Lawrence River is coming down this way. Okay, down between Canada and New York, right? St. Lawrence River. Quebec and Montreal are going to be on that river. LaSalle, he's going to go down the Mississippi. And he's going to claim all of this territory. And he basically, we call that the LaSalle V, where he claims, big giant chunks of territory for France. Very, very few French people will be there. But they will have a presence, but not in population. Yes?
On that map, it says that Florida is a disputed territory between the British and the French.
Florida is going to be Spain. This I don't know what the date of this is, but Spain will claim this for sure.
And it was part of a
claims
Spanish
up
colony?
even up here too.
And when did it become part of the United States then? Was it
Florida?
It was
Florida?
during the War of 1812.
Florida?
Yes.
1820.
Okay.
It'll be the Adams-Onis Treaty. We basically go and take it. As we do everything we want. Iraq. Okay, LaSalle. So sometimes you'll see LaSalle, but look, 1516. This is kind of late. New France is the what's called colony for the French. Quebec is 1608. Montreal 1648. To put it in context, this is 100 years after Columbus and 10 years before the English get to Plymouth. It's right around the same time as Jamestown. Okay? These guys, okay, so it's 50 years after Jamestown, more or less. Okay? This will be the French presence in Canada starts with them. I mean, there's still French people speaking French in Canada. What is the organization? So this would be the Sprite for the French colony. Basically, the king gives a permission for an individual or a company to go to the New World and settle and make a profitable business. So the first thing is a license. It's a business for profit. It's one of the early motives for a colony will be profit. The Spanish, we're going to conquer, we're going to take and make wealth out of it. We're going to make profit out of it. So you have both a kind of a government function and a private enterprise function, a business. Samuel de Champlain is one of these guys who's got the license. He goes up to St. Lawrence. He establishes Montreal. He has the two Indian tribes that he's working with are the Huron and the Iroquois. And they're going to be trading fur pelts, fur skins, animal skins. Now, this is kind of the social aspects. There's no large plantation style. Did we talk about that yet? You did. You already did the reading. So what is a plantation, Rosemary?
Like a giant, field type area where they would grow all the crops.
Giant farm, right? Remember? There's two types of plantation. This is not that one. So the first one is Gone with the Wind plantation, right? And the second one is, go ahead, Madeline.
When they take people from their country and come
Yeah. You plant people and not, you know what I mean by like, you understand what I mean? You create a settlement. You create a settlement for people with population. That's the type of plantation we're talking about. Does that make sense? Anybody there?
Yes.
So with no large plantation means it's not going to be a large population. As you read about Plymouth and Massachusetts Bay in chapter 2, they're massive plantations, except for Plymouth is not massive, but they're plantations. They're bringing English people to settle the land like they did in Ireland. Pay attention to the Irish example. That's chapter 1, I guess. So no large plantation. So it's going to be significant small population. We will have good relations with the Indians, which will be a good big contrast with the English. Think about why they have good relations, because they're small population. If, just think about what's going on in Europe today. You know what's going on in Europe, right? You have all these people fleeing. About 1 million or 2 million refugees are fleeing war in Syria, the civil war that's been going on there for 4 years now. They're leaving, and they're somehow got access to Europe, and they're just flooding into Europe. How does that make the Hungarians feel? You guys follow the news?
Mm-hmm.
Most of you don't, but the Hungarians are a small population and going, no way, we don't want these people. They're different. We don't want them. We don't know who they are, whatever. They're bad. According to the Hungarians are saying that. If you have large influx of population, the Indians don't like it because they're, number one, they're taking your land, they're ruining your way of life, and you don't like that. So these guys, since they had small settlement, small populations, they're not displacing the Indians. The English will have large populations, and they're going to displace the Indians. There's going to be chronic fighting. And then the Americans are going to take over, and it's going to be chronic fighting. Okay. So they have significant good relationship. One other thing, from the Indian perspective, you see these guys, they're here, and they have all these neat toys and gadgets, and cool things. Metal pots and firearms and beads that you like that are shining. Things of that nature. So they're like, wow, we can get stuff from these guys. There are not too many of them. They talk funny and they're weird, but hey, they have neat toys. Let's be nice to them. You see that? So that's their mindset. And of course, the French are, hey, look at all this furs. I can send them back to France, and I can make some money. Beaucoup money. I don't know how to say money.
L'argent.
Money? How?
L'argent. Well, argentum is silver, and they use that as their
L'argent?
Yeah.
Say it again.
L'argent.
I'd say, isn't there a slang word for it?
Not
Bucks.
really.
Beaucoup bucks. All right, moving on. Algonquin and Huron will be friendly to the French. That's going to be important later when we have wars with the English and who will be on the English side, etc. French colonization, again, beaver pelts, fur trade, fishing. The guys are called coureurs de bois, the French fur traders. Okay, you're a French translator.
Mhm.
What does coureurs de bois mean?
Hearts of the river.
Cour?
Hearts.
No.
I won't have.
Anyone else speak French here? All right, jump on your fancy phone.
Google Translate.
Will translate.
Corazon is hard.
That's Spanish.
Well, it's hard.
Ser
not wrong.
is the singular of heart, so
It's a different word. What does that mean? Cour. What?
I don't know.
Correr.
Run.
To run.
Bois. What is bois?
Boy.
Bois?
It literally means fur traders.
No,
Wood runner.
in the woods. Runners in the woods. Runners in the woods. The word, this is run. They run in the woods. Bois is like a forest.
Yeah. They,
Am I right?
no. Or mine also says fur traders.
bois is
But
forest.
the literal translate, of course, that's what it means in terms of it's a reference to these people,
Yeah.
the fur traders. But
Yeah,
what
okay,
is
if-
the actual French wording?
Yeah, if you have the whole phrase in Google Translate, it says fur traders, but if you do each individual word, it says runners. So.
Runner in the woods. Anyway, nobody's wrong. We just want to clear.
Except Kyle.
Yeah, except me, that's wrong.
Except you were totally wrong.
Yeah.
Of course so. But I don't know. I took one French class and I dropped it. And I'm sad about that. All right. Roman Catholics, that's another one. So this is the religious component, right? This would be the economic component, wouldn't it? For Sprite. The story of the Jesuits. You guys know who the Jesuits were?
Missionaries.
The missionaries who were, but they were special. Who were the Jesuits? They were the, go ahead.
They were the educated class of priest missionaries. They were dedicated to fighting against the Reformation.
Right. These were the guys, supposedly the
die.
Jesus soldiers, you know, whatever, that would go and fight the
Take the
Reformation and be the missionaries and be the most highly intellectual of the priesthoods. They were like that, the big intellectuals. Yes,
Could they be described as like radicals, right?
Riley. Anyone who joins the priesthood are probably radicals, but they would be like the Marine Corps compared to like the Army. The elite, you know, the hardcore, you know, guys. Here's a great movie. I really would like to show this. Maybe would anyone go if I set some time up to show some movies after school?
Mhm.
Should we do a club? Anybody interested in a history club?
After school.
Yes.
And we
It's a
do
lot
like
harder
movie
after
every
school.
month or every week or something.
If there's food.
You know what? I might be able to do it. The History Awards might have some money that I could use on it. Speaking of that, Emma, can you fill out the papers for me? I know there's some leftover money. Would they let me buy food with it? Well, History Club. We could do it during advisory too. But not Wednesday because I have to do that CSF thing.
Tuesday.
Is tomorrow advisory?
Yes.
Yes.
Serious? You guys want to start this movie on Wednesday, Tuesday? I'll start it. Basically, what you're going to see is the Jesuits are going to try to convert the Indians. It's really historically accurate, and it shows the lifestyle of the Indians more than anything, especially these woodland tribes. And it's a little graphic. There's a little bit of blood, but there's a lot more about their ideas and what they do. So I will show it in here if you want to come at advisory. So Stephanie, can you put a note on the board for Black Robe on Tuesday during advisory?
Tomorrow, Tuesday or
Tomorrow.
Okay, tomorrow.
We don't have Xbox.
It's right over there in the basket.
Here you go. There's also a box full. Here's another one.
I don't need any more.
Throw it anyway.
It's unfair to throw things when they're not looking.
Make a lightsaber.
Here's another one. Okay. Question?
Yeah, will people who aren't in your history class be able to continue?
Sure. You're open. I don't want to deny anyone. So should we make a club?
Yeah.
Yes.
History
Emma,
Movie Watchers
can
Club.
you make it? What should we call it?
History Movie Watchers Club.
No, we have to say.
Historical.
Does anyone speak Latin here?
No.
What a surprise! Make up a motto for us, or like a Latin name.
Okay.
Like you can't make it a fraternity. There is an honor society called Phi Alpha Theta, which is a history honor society. We could copy that. Okay, make a Phi Alpha Theta History Honor Society.
Okay.
Can you write that down? And then can you get the forms for another club and write it up for us? Is it? Who wants to be in it? Raise your hand, you want to be in it. Raise your hand, you want to be the president. All those in favor of Kyle being president? Okay. Kyle, you're in charge of it.
Elected.
Okay.
We're going to meet on Tuesdays.
Okay.
Tuesdays.
Should I pick up club paperwork from Miss Denny then?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you in ASB too?
No, but I need to go down there anyway
Do
for.
you want to have Emma
two
get
other
it?
clubs.
Emma, do you want to get it first? No.
I can just get it at
You don't
lunch
have
today.
time. Tomorrow. But we need it. So tomorrow we'll start it in advisory. We'll watch it. Remind me to tell it. So it's Phi Alpha Theta Honor Society.
I'll
We
think
might
of-
be able to make a national.
I'll think of a fun Latin phrase for a motto.
The Nerd Club. What is it? What?
I'll think of a fun motto.
Okay, do that. Marquette and Juliet. Who cares? Cavalier, LaSalle. We already talked about him. New Orleans. This is important. New Orleans is established in 1699. Again, that's going to be a long-lasting French presence, especially for trade. New Orleans is going to be really important for our in the American period. Once the French leave, New Orleans will be important. Okay. Why did I put these in here? Okay, well these would be the locations of rivers, okay. Forget why I put these on here. This is New York. Oh, Hudson River, probably. The Dutch, yeah. Okay, so we'll go back. Hudson River. So we're going to do the Dutch in America. So Hudson comes down here, he goes up the Hudson River, discovers it. It goes pretty far, which is interesting. They're going to have their settlement here. Right here is New York, the peninsula island of Manhattan, and there's Long Island. Of course, New York City is right there. This will be the location of what we'll call the New Netherlands, and New York City will be known as New Amsterdam. Interesting how it starts. The Dutch West India Company is a for-profit, private enterprise. It's a business in trade, a trading business with investors, which is really the interesting part. They're trying to find the Northwest Passage. We already talked about that. Henry Hudson is the explorer. He goes up the Hudson River, claims all that territory for the Dutch. New Netherlands, they have a good relationship with Indians at first because they're not placing a massive population. And they have traders. So they want stuff from the Indians, so they have to keep positive relations. Again, same thing, the economics is fur trading. New Amsterdam, there's a great story about you want to hear the story about how they got,
Bless you.
called?
Thank you.
Manhattan
Yeah.
from the... Manhattan from the Indians? Anybody want to hear?
Sure.
Yeah.
This is this history, a documentary history of New York City. Really interesting. When I was studying at Columbia, I got this. Let's see. Oh, that's the prison ships. Okay. Henry Hudson's voyage. Still talking about it. New Amsterdam. Trading post. Oh, I can't find it right now. Indians. Representation. Oh, there's a thing, I can't find it, but there's a story about how we bought the Dutch bought New island of Manhattan. I can't find it. Well, here's the story. So Manhattan is an island like that, okay? And you have like New Jersey's over here, and New York's over here, and then Long Island's down here, okay? So the Dutch get here, and they land at different places, and they go, hey, this is good land. This seems like a good, stable location. You know, it's in the middle of this giant harbor, and it's got a lot of easy access. It's defensible. And they show up, and there are these Indians there. And so they go and they talk to the Indians who are there, and they say, hey, we will sell all of this stuff called wampum. Wampum was like shiny beads that the Indians liked. And they were negotiating. He said, the Dutch said, hey, we would like to buy this piece of land, this island. We want to buy this from you. We have all this good stuff, this wampum like beads and stuff. And the Indians who are on the island go, okay, we'll sell it to you. And they end up selling it for all this stuff, copper pots and wampum and all this. About $35 worth of glass and junk like that. It really was a bad deal for the Indians. But the ironic thing was, Manhattan was a hunting ground. It was a place where people who were more established in other locations would go there to hunt and then go back home. So what they believe is that the Indians who were there sold it, and it wasn't theirs to sell, basically. It was the first con job in New York City history. You get it? New York City's known for the hustle. There used to be an old joke, you know, like you could sell the Brooklyn Bridge to suckers, you know, as a con. You never heard that? When I was growing up. It was an old joke when I was a kid. Anyway, so it's funny. Their leader is a guy named Peter Stuyvesant. You will see him if you ever go to New York City. Go to the Historical Society. It's right across the street from Central Park. It's right down the street from the Metropolitan Museum. It's a really cool building and neat, a lot of artwork and fun stuff in there. You'll see his picture there. He's this Dutch guy. Anyway, that's about it. Peter Stuyvesant. Everyone say Stuyvesant?
Stuyvesant.
Oh, it's not right. That's not right. It's Stuyvesant. Stuyvesant. That's how you pronounce it, Stuyvesant, in Dutch. I called someone last year who was a Dutch speaker. Anyway. By the way, let's see. There was one more thing. What is the role of the Dutch in world power politics at this time? Does anybody know? Besides Kyle. Jonathan.
Wasn't it banking?
Yeah, banking. They were significant. Anyone been to the Amsterdam? Did you like it?
Yeah.
It's really cool. Amsterdam is totally man-made. It was built up over time out of a swamp or a bog, and would flood all the time. And those Dutch figured out how to drain swamps, and were really strong engineers in that area. The Dutch were one of the top powerful countries or entities in the world, especially at this time. They had influence and trade and wealth all over the world. So in India, Malaysia, down here, the New World, they were economic powerhouse in this era. So don't underestimate the Dutch. The Dutch were very, very strong. Rivals to the French and the Spanish and the English. Okay. All right, so it's New Netherlands. You got that. New Amsterdam. New Sweden was right around there, like around New Jersey area, but will be taken over by the Dutch also. Bam.